Okay, before we can begin knitting, we actually need to have stitches on our needles. Take a piece of yarn that's about 60 centimeters. It doesn't have to be exact, but you know, it's a good place to start, 60 centimeters. Hold it in that very spot of 60 centimeters. You're going to have your loose ends. We call this the tail on your left-hand side. And you're going to have what we call the working yarn that's attached to the ball on your right-hand side. To start, we're not going to use our needle right away. We're going to make one loop first before we get into that. We're going to take the yarn, wrap it around our finger or our thumb, any finger you choose. Loosely pull that off carefully. See, we still have our loop. Find the piece of yarn underneath and pull it through. This is called a slip knot, and it's a great way to start the stitches on your needle. Pick up one of your needles. You only need one for this part. You're going to slip your needle through the loop and pull it tight. Not too tight, just tight enough that it's on there. You can still move it up and down, and it will stay on your needle. Now we count this as a first stitch, okay? But we need more than one stitch in order to knit a scarf or anything really. So you're going to add more stitches. The method I'm teaching you is called a long tail method, okay? And this is the one I use most. It's not too difficult to use, but I find it's really nice. It gives you a nice steady end. So taking your tail, you're going to pick up the yarn in your fist, wrap your thumb around the yarn so that you have a little loop there and while still holding it. You see how that looks? Okay. Now you take your right hand needle, put it through. You see what I just did there? I put it through. Okay, so they're kind of parallel. Then you pick up your working yarn that's attached to the ball. You're going to bring it around the back of that needle, through the middle between your thumb and your needle. Then you're going to pull, you notice, pull your needle down like this and pull your thumb out. So you have a stitch, okay? Now, try not to have them too tight. Remember, we want them so that we can move them on the needle. Maybe have a little bit of space between them so you can see the needle, okay? Then we continue. We've got 2 here. Now we want 8 more because we're going for 10. Okay, hold in your hand, thumb around, up through, around the back, down through, up through, around the back, up through. See, I'm holding it in my hand. Okay, I'm trying to hold it so it's not too tight, not too loose. I bring it down. That's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so let's count our stitches here. Do we have 10 stitches? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 stitches. So now we are going to turn our work. And turning simply means turn it. Okay, so now that all the yarn is on this side of the needle, the pointing side is facing right. Okay, and we are going to now start our first knit row. Okay, it's very important to make sure that our tail piece that's not attached to a ball is still on our left side. Our piece of yarn that's attached to our ball is on our right side. Okay, then we're going to pick up our second needle. This part is going to be easy because we kind of used this technique already when we were casting on our stitches. So to knit, we put, sometimes it's a little tight, we put the needle through, the second needle through our yarn, okay? You notice it's like this, it's crossed a little bit. We'll pick up our working yarn attached to the ball, bring it around the needle like this, so it's going between the 2 needles. I'm going to take the tip of this needle and bring it down and around, and we pull the old stitch off. So up, around, pull the stitch off. Ooh, my. Oops. up, around, down, pull the stitch off. And we're going to do that till we get to the end. Oh, okay, so we're almost there. Sometimes our first row will be a little tight because we're still getting used to gauge or tension, or that just means how tight it is, but we will get used to it. The more knitting you do, the more you'll get used to your tension and how much you need to do. Okay, so once you've finished knitting that first row, you see how easy that was? You're going to turn it again and do another row. Okay, and we keep doing this until we get to the length that we want. Okay, see how easy this row is compared to the first row? Much different, much different. Oh, very good. We're on our way. We're on our way. Look at that. Nice. Okay, there you go. Perfect. We'll keep going. Okay, until we reach, well, it depends on what we want. A nice scarf would be 3 or 4 feet long. We could be doing hats. We know this stitch, we can knit almost anything we want. Okay, once we've knit as much as we need or want to, we need to cast off. I just knit a little piece here as an example, but until you know how to cast off, you're gonna have to wear those scarves with knitting needles for the rest of your life, and we don't want to do that. So casting off, very important. Now you're gonna hold your needle just as if you were knitting a regular row. Okay, you're gonna have your needle facing right with your piece of work with your stitches here. Okay, you're going to take your second needle and knit the first 2 stitches. Okay, now this is the hard part. Very carefully, you take your left-handed needle, your left needle, put it through the first needle you knit. Okay, bring it down to the end and pull it over the second needle stitch you knit. Okay, knit another stitch. Okay, go back to the first one, pull it over. Okay, try not to be too tight because that's something you have to get used to. Okay, knit another stitch, pull it over. And another stitch, pull it over. And another stitch, pull it over. Okay, so you keep doing this till we get to the end. Okay, almost there. Okay, we are at the end, and you will notice there's no more stitches to knit, but we have this last one. Pull the stitch through. I like to pull it about 16 centimeters. I'm not going to measure it, but that's about 16 centimeters. Okay, you take your scissors and cut it at that point. Okay, cut it. You've got 2 ends. Pull your working yarn out, and there you go. Boom, all done. Okay, try not to be too tight when you're doing that. Just do a nice relaxed cast off. So after casting off, you're going to want to do a nice finish. So you're going to weave your ends through. Okay, you notice there are 2 ends, and that's all there should be. We only use 1 color of yarn, and now we're going to secure it so that it doesn't fall apart on you. Okay, you're going to thread your needle with the big eye needle. Okay. And here's, some people call this weaving, some people call it finishing, they just call it finishing. What you need to do is take the end here and sew it through, and you need to do it in a V fashion, like 1, maybe 2, maybe go through the second one, 3, 3 down, okay, maybe 3 up this way. You can do it like this if you want to. I do it that way. Okay, so I did a little V shape there, okay, so that my yarn will not just slip out. It won't go straight, okay, and that helps it from slipping out. Once you finish weaving it through, just cut the end. Careful not to cut your project. There you go, I cut the end, pull it a little bit, and now we have a nice piece with the ends woven in. You can't see where it was, okay? Now, there are different techniques of doing that. I find that one's the easiest to do, and it's a great way of doing it for beginners, okay? Once you do one side, you do the other side. I'm gonna show you a little tip here. Okay, let's get rid of this extra yarn. You will notice that we left a loose stitch right here. Kind of not very straight, right? This one's nice and straight. This one's not so much. When that happens, you're going to sew in your end like, you know, put your thread in like this, but come down, bring it down through that. Tighten it up so it looks a little neater on the end, okay? That's a little tip from me to you. Then I go back down like this, and then we go back to our weaving again, okay? Weaving it in so we can't see it. So now we don't have that big hole there. Through a few places like this. And maybe back through that way. Okay, there you go. 4 or 5 is all you need. Okay. Cut the end. Wiggle that a little bit. And there you go. Done. Beautiful. There you go. That's your first knitting.